Welcome to the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. I'm your host, Eric Smith. On today's episode, we're joined by Ashley Thompson, President and CEO of the United Way of Story County. Ashley shares her leadership journey, the evolving needs across the community, and how the United Way is bringing partners together to address challenges and drive long-term impact across Story County. This episode is presented by Flynn Wright, Iowa's premier full-service advertising agency, serving clients from coast to coast for over 40 years. Experts in crafting stories that sell, Flynn Wright prides itself on helping brands drive performance and stay one step ahead. Ashley Thompson, President and CEO of the United Way of Story County, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me, Eric.
I mean, we were just talking right before we came on, and we were joking on how, maybe the winter is slow season. I remember that I've been told that for our organization until I experienced, the first Q1, and there's no slow season. I mean, the amount of things that the United Way is involved with across our community is pretty staggering, and thus the invitation to talk about many of these things. But how is the year going so far?
It's great. It is funny that you say there's a slow season. We just had a conversation about this as a team. We joke that for most of the year, we work with thousands of donors and community members to raise money and to help our local nonprofits and service organizations. And then the fun part at the beginning of every year, we get to give all of that money away. And then usually we have that slow season, but with some of the work that we're doing, reimagining Women United, our strategic plan, and envisioning forward, there doesn't seem to be a slow time for us as of recent.
So, I went through your annual report, and these are just high-level things, and we're going to dive into some of them. But, you and your team are working in education, you're working in mental health, there's some financial services, certainly having conversations and assisting with food insecurities, and that is just the beginning of the topics of the things that you're thinking about. How does you and your team, and maybe we can start with the strategic plan, and how do you prioritize some of those topics when every one of them is certainly important, but ultimately, as an organization, you have to make decisions on where to put, even most importantly, where you put your time.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question. What we have done, late last year, we launched our new 2030 strategic plan, and then our new community impact agenda. So our first 5-year community impact agenda was approved by the board in late 2019 and launched in 2020, and then we all know what happened. Yes. So that was our first real 5-year strategy, if you will, about how are we convening and working with human service agencies, nonprofits, businesses, associations like the Alliance, really to achieve some community-wide goals. So we wrapped up that first 5-year strategy in 2025, and now we've launched our new agenda and strategy. Yeah. Really, all of that has been informed by our community. So that's not something that our board and team got in a room and said, here's what we think the priorities are. So we spent almost 18 months talking with thousands of community members, our donors, individuals and families who are served in Story County and our Story County residents. And then we also partnered with SQALA, which is the Story County Quality of Life Alliance. It's led by our great friends at Mary Greeley and Story County Public Health. They conducted a community health needs assessment, which happens for our county every few years. So all of that information that we gathered through the community health needs assessment and through our own research over the last 18 months has informed our new 2030 plan.
Feels like a lot of inputs.
It does, but that's incredibly important for us, and knowing United Way at all is to know that we are that convener and that catalyst in the community. So we take our role in leading systems change and bringing all voices to the table to make sure that what we are doing and what we're leading and what we're partnering with alongside the 100,000 folks who are here in Story County makes sense, and that it's not done in a vacuum. So how do we bring everyone to the table to make sure that what we are investing in and what we are walking alongside folks actually is making a difference?
So before we dive into a bit of the state of a community, so to speak, let's back up a little bit. So you were announced as the new president and CEO in November of 23. Prior to that, you worked at Unity Point Health, and just kind of unpacking some of your bio, I know that you've been very active in a lot of boards, certainly the nonprofit community, other statewide associations, Iowa Hospital Association, Business Council, Iowa Rural Development Council. I could go on and on because there are many more. But I know that when your hire was announced and now the community knew that you were coming in, I mean, I think people were really excited that the United Way would continue to be in good hands and continue on with all of the work, that preceded you.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. If anything, if my background says anything, it's my passion and belief in community, and that no one can do any one thing alone. And so that's really where I've built my personal life, my professional life. I'm a proud seventh generation Iowan. So I was near and dear and home for me. You talked about the Iowa Rural Development Council. So I've been really fortunate to sit on that statewide board for the last number of years. Iowa Business Council through some of my previous work. So a lot of that systems or macro level of how are we working together, whether that's across communities or across the state. And then also looking at kind of other personal and professional parts of my life is working with individuals and families. So I was actually on the United Way board for about a year before I got nudged by a couple of friends to maybe throw my hat in the ring.
Did you see this coming?
I really did not.
Okay.
But a happy surprise. I'm not someone who said, in 20 years I want to be the United Way CEO. But I feel like my life has kind of come to this culmination of, wow, this actually makes perfect sense of working in advocacy and working with public health and with systems. And then at the local level, it made a lot of sense. So I'm really fortunate to be here.
So what was that decision-making process like? I mean, when I came into this role, there are considerations that it's not just the career and professional opportunities, but there's, family implications into all of that. So share what you want on that, but I'm just curious on how that decision-making process went.
Yes. So my husband and I have lived here in Story County for about 10 years, and he's worked here in the community. So he's the CEO over at Story County Medical Center in Nevada. You will not meet a bigger Iowa State University fan than my husband. So certainly being in Ames and Story County has been a joy for us. I'm a converted fan. So I grew up in
welcome.
Northeast Iowa, and was a UNI fan for a long time. So but for us, Ames has always been home, even when we didn't live here. So very involved in the community when we lived in rural Iowa, and coming back to Ames, whether that was for sporting events or family and friends who live here too. So Ames has always been home for us.
Listen, we accept UNI. I have a UNI degree as well, so I understand it. But you also understood the organization, having been on the board. So, you weren't coming in cold completely. I mean, there was certainly some understanding. So once you get into the role, I just find, leadership positions and opportunities to be really interesting. And I like to unpack them because I think oftentimes it's easy to forget about the range of topics. And so when I'm thinking about what you're doing, yes, it's Story County, but you have to have a lens beyond Story County and an understanding as well. And I'd imagine some of your board work prior to that certainly assisted in that transition process.
Yes, absolutely. So coming from a long part of my career in healthcare, and seeing the dynamics that either play out nationally or statewide or even locally, and how care is delivered or workforce issues, those national and statewide trends, inform what happens at the local level. So if you're not able to have a workforce to help you, that's going to impact you locally.
Yeah.
So I would say too, in being a deputy member of the Iowa Business Council, that was another very not eye-opening, because a lot of it, I dealt with for 20 years, but really looking at the business and industry impact of how that permeates all the way down to the most local level, not even in a community, but in a household. And so certainly that informs what we do. And I think here locally, as we're making decisions, having that knowledge and experience to say what we're doing locally, how will state and federal pieces impact that, has been tremendously helpful.
Yeah. A few other things that I want you to just kind of quickly respond to. I mean, this understanding of grants, or maybe how to expand programming, now for your organization. And then certainly for the president and CEO role, there is a fiscal understanding that needs to be top of mind for you specifically as well. And so, all of these things are oftentimes, they're very different topics and very different skill sets. And yet oftentimes in leadership roles, you have to balance them all.
You do. And especially for us as a local nonprofit, our dollars stay here in Story County. So we always have to be mindful of that and good stewards of whether those are donor dollars or when we're really fortunate to receive some grant funding or other funding streams. So really having an understanding of where those dollars are coming from, and then how are we making the most impactful and best investments in our community is something I certainly focus on every day.
So is fundraising, I mean, is that a 12-month, a year top of mind thing for the United Way?
It is. And I think for United Way, I mean, certainly there are areas that we focus on in fundraising, but I think what's most important for us is showcasing our impact and our convening ability in the community, and then the money follows. And so for us, it's not, we're always worried about the bottom line, because we want to make sure that we're able to make investments in our nonprofit partners in the community. But really what we talk about as a team every day, as a board every day, as our volunteers every day, is around where can we make the best impact. And when we do that, we see, and we've had some experiences with this locally, of, gosh, you're doing some really great things. We got called out nationally for some of our work with primary healthcare here recently. And I'm a true believer in really focusing on what matters most, and those are those we serve, those are our team members, those who are supporters in our community, and the rest will fall into place.
What was that national attention? What was that around?
Yeah, no, that was great. We had a staff member who went to a United Way Worldwide National Conference here last week. It was held over in Illinois, and the CEO of United Way Worldwide was giving her keynote, and had called out 3 or 4 United Ways specifically that she was really impressed with that work. And so to our delight, United Way of Story County was called out. We had no idea. But some of the investments that we're making specifically with primary healthcare around dental navigation and dental services. So lots of folks, whether they're of Medicare age or maybe don't have dental insurance through a place of work, it's really hard to find dental care. And so through our investments and through the work that we've done with primary healthcare over the last, 5 years, we've been able to ramp up dental services to really help a lot of members of our community who were otherwise struggling to find dental care. So a great highlight.
So dental care feels interesting to me, and I'd known about this, but even just hearing you say it, I think a lot of people would be shocked to know that your organization is engaged with this. So one, how does that start? And then 2, how are you identifying families who can really benefit from this?
Sure. And this has been a long time. I think back to before I was a part of United Way, I sat on the Story County Asset Board, which is the City of Ames, Story County, United Way, and then Iowa State University Student Government. So we provide about $5.5 million in funding across Story County every year. And I was city representative on the board at that time. There were dental navigation and dental services being provided by another nonprofit in the community who, for a variety of reasons, had to transition that service. So we went to primary healthcare and said, this is really important to our community. We're seeing data from our community health needs assessment that's saying we have lots of folks, especially our older adults or that 60 forward population. Once you get on Medicare, a lot of Medicare plans don't offer dental services. And so we had been hearing from a lot of our friends and neighbors, this is really tough for us to be able to find that service. So we worked with primary healthcare who offers those services in Des Moines and said, what can we do? How can we partner and invest for you to be able to provide those services in Ames? And gosh, the rest is history.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, a lot of the things that you're talking about right now are in a very different way, are also very similar to the conversations that we have in this organization. And that the fun part of the organization is that you work across the community, and almost every topic is on the table. And I think showing capacity and success and the ability to be able to implement things, it oftentimes leads to more opportunities to do things, which is certainly a blessing, but also a management of resources and people all at the same time. I'm sure you have these types of conversations as well.
I do.
How did we get into this? I mean, like it's good for the community, but
Sure. A couple of our close colleagues within United Way, our board and staff, say I'm the yes and person. So I sometimes have to be tempered. But I mean, absolutely, there's no shortage of opportunities for us to, whether that's to lead or to partner or to help provide support. And so our strategic plan is really helping us reinforce what matters most. And so sometimes that is maybe not a yes, but not right now, but we'll be back. And so certainly our plan and our community impact agenda is helping us to really focus and hone in on what our community is saying. This is where we need you most.
Yeah. But saying yes is your job. I mean, that is the leadership part of it. I feel like it is so easy for individuals to say no to adding more to their plate. I mean, everyone's included in that. It's you want to say no, but as an organization, you have to think we're the best equipped to handle, whatever this topic is. And sometimes saying yes is the hard answer, but it's the right one as well.
It is, and I think about just some conversations I've had over the last couple of years with Dan here at the Alliance of, going into Hamilton County, for instance, of that wasn't on our plan and wasn't on our radar, but it just made sense, and so we said yes. We said yes quickly, and now look at where we are as an organization and a community, and so certainly I've had those moments already here in the last couple of years where, okay, maybe this wasn't in the plans for this year or next year, but this makes absolute sense because this is where we're needed most.
Well, talk about your team a little bit, because you did reference, sometimes you have to be tempered down, and I think that's good leadership too. I mean, you have to have the right people to surround you to balance you out, because there probably isn't an opportunity to say yes to everything, but it can be a great. If you have a great team, it can really pay off as well. So speak a little bit to that.
Sure. I'm clearly biased. And
you should be.
Absolutely. We have an absolutely incredible team at United Way. We are so fortunate. Team members who have come to us with lived experience and direct experience supporting individuals and families in this community or throughout the country. So they bring our community impact team, Sarah and Allegra, bring a breadth and depth of experience that I'd put up against anyone. We're opening up our volunteer engagement components of the organization. So we've repositioned a staff person to be able to do that, Maggie King, who's part of our team and has done an absolutely outstanding job. and helping us ramp that up. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about
Yeah.
that. Other members of our team, Kristen Pates, who is certainly very well known in the community, leads our fundraising and philanthropic efforts. I could go on and on,
Yeah.
but we have an amazing team that we have tough conversations. We challenge one another, but it's a team that is always thinking very intently about the decisions that we make and how that's going to impact our community. I've been on boards and in organizations sometimes where that isn't always the case. And that's what is so exciting for me and why I love being a part of United
Yeah.
Way, because we do that every day.
Yeah. In a very similar way, because I feel like our organization is similar to this, but you had referenced it already. You sit at sort of the intersection of nonprofits, the business community, local government. Also, you're at the center of a lot of tough conversations on how to tackle certain things across the community. And so how do you keep, sort of your mission front and center to all of that? Because you're receiving a lot of inputs from, different community organizations or individuals, or you're getting asked. I'm sure there's a lot of situations where we'll just call the United Way. And, you get a lot of that, and that's great. That's what you want, but you have to balance it all.
Sure. I think for us, really our true north and what we do every day is driven by our strategic plan and our agenda, but certainly our board is very involved, and I'm talking about our staff. Wow, our board, some just incredible community leaders who are helping us navigate and think through what matters most. Um, I think for us, we're always considering and working with the business community, and I think that's what makes United Way so unique, is that
Yeah.
systems focus. We're bringing together and partnering with folks from for-profit, government, nonprofit, as you
Yeah.
talked about,
Yeah.
and how do we find that intersection of what is important to all of those folks, and then how do we bring the right people at the table to make that happen? And we're doing that right now. Childcare would be one example
Yeah.
where we're focused on in the community.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. You're good at segueing here, but you did launch this childcare feasibility study. We helped promote it, and we're part of that as well, as were other organizations, Story County, City of Ames, Iowa State, and others as well. Talk about not only the importance of talking about community childcare, but then what led to this study as well.
Sure. I'm excited for this to be released here in the next few weeks. This is the first time we've ever done a countywide study on childcare, so I'm very proud of all of our partners, Nevada Economic Development Council, and some others who have helped support us and make this happen. Really, this is a perfect example of what we were just talking about, where you'll talk with someone in the alliance or the business community of, gosh, I just can't keep workforce because, childcare availability or access or affordability. On the other side, we work with a lot of our nonprofit and in-home childcare centers, and
Yeah.
they're saying, I'm struggling to meet demand or struggling with workforce. And so kind of all facets of those challenges of how do we maintain a high quality, affordable childcare system in our county. And certainly the Alliance
Yeah.
understands having accessible, affordable childcare is what is going to differentiate our community and bringing in businesses. And so what can we be doing to make sure that that system is not only sound, but growing and strong for the future? We have all kinds of ideas and we hear that, but let's take a real in-depth approach and challenge our own assumptions, of we just need more spots.
Yeah.
Do we? And so what we're looking at right now, and we're partnering with a couple of experts to help us with the study, is to challenge those assumptions and to really give us actionable recommendations. Not a large study that will sit somewhere on a shelf, and boy, that was great. We did that a few years ago. But this is going to give us the action steps that we need to move forward and make sure that we're building and strengthening that system.
Yeah. Well, it's incredibly powerful. And I just remember this being certainly a topic during COVID, but it continued on since then. And what I find interesting is this incredibly important topic, but you referenced all the things that it intersects with. It's not just about childcare, it's how that intersects with workforce development. Certainly for us, housing is a topic that, we're continuing to pursue, and how do we continue to expand housing opportunities, not just here in Story County, but across the region, because in many ways, the borders of counties and cities, they all sort of mesh. I mean, Huxley's not far from here. Nevada's not far from here. Good things happening in Boone benefit, the community and people who live in Ames as well. And this is just another piece to that.
It is. And I think where our study, what we're seeing right now is just that of we have to think differently in some areas around the four walls of our county. And that we are in a growing metropolitan area where folks are living and working and receiving care or shopping or whatever that may be in a multitude of counties right around us. And so how do we take into account those dynamics as well to make sure that system is working? Not necessarily just within Story County, but that recognition of where families live, work, and play. Yeah. And so how do we make sure that we're doing that appropriately? And I think this is our study, which will launch here in the next few weeks, is a perfect example of how we're going to be able to do that.
This episode of the Area Podcast is sponsored by...
You have a story to tell. That story has a job to do, to be seen, to be heard, to sell, to find inspiration and insight, to use persuasion to change behavior, to turn strategy into tactics, tactics into action, to sell. Nobody does that better than Flynn Wright.
Welcome to Bethany Life.
At the Households of Bethany, we offer thoughtfully designed services through transitional, respite, memory, and long-term care, centered on dignity, respect, and quality of life.
At Timberland Village, we offer independent and assisted living, as well as our twin homes.
Life Choices at Bethany is our life care at home model, offering personalized support in your moment of need, brought right to your doorstep. And with Bethany at Home, we extend compassionate care and support wherever home may be.
Learn more at BethanyLife.org. Bethany Life, built on hope, wellness, and compassion.
At Northcrest Community, we've made a lot of changes in the last 60 years, but the best things have remained the same. I'm Dawn Borwig, CEO of Northcrest, and I want to tell you why. When you choose Northcrest, you're beginning a new stage of fulfilling, worry-free living. Say goodbye to the burden of home maintenance and hello to an active, engaged community. As the only nonprofit, locally owned and operated community in Ames, we guarantee you a home and our care for the rest of your life. When your needs change, you stay right here, in your community, near your friends and your family. At Northcrest, no one is ever asked to leave because of a lack of funds. That's our nonprofit mission. That's the Life Care Promise. Our residents will tell you, don't wait, don't put it off. Come enjoy all the benefits Northcrest Living has to offer. To learn more, visit our website at northcrestcommunity.org or call to schedule your tour with Kimberly today.
Just south of Iowa State University, in the heart of the Midwest, sits the Iowa State University Research Park, 550 acres of opportunity and innovation. With over 1 million square feet of developed space, it's home to more than 145 tenant companies, from startups to global leaders. Discover innovation hubs, collaborative spaces, and a community that's shaping the future. Whether you're scaling up or starting fresh, ISU Research Park has room to grow. Visit isupark.org to learn more.
We're going to dive into a couple more unique topics. I'm going to point to last year's annual report, but we can kind of even speak broadly on some of these topics that I think many people will understand and recognize that, the United Way is engaged with, but I would imagine many will not as well. And so we're going to kind of go through some of them. I know that early childhood literacy has been sort of a legacy topic that, as far as, I've been engaged with the United Way, the organization has been working with that. So tell me some more about just like working with kids. I know that you've partnered with schools in previous years, and talk more about that.
Sure. So education has always been a pillar, an important factor for United Way. That's not new. That's been back for decades, even to when Frankie Olson, our president and CEO in the early 2000s, had really spearheaded that. We make investments in early childhood education in a few different ways. This is near and dear to my heart as a former educator. Go you and I. But really looking at first investments through just our annual giving and our allocations. So we work with a lot of partners, Raising Readers of Story County, among many others, of Ames Public Library, to make sure that we're making those investments, whether that's in tools and facilities, but also experts, whether those are educators or tutors or whatever that may be, to give every single child and family in the community the opportunity to receive education in a variety of different ways, whether that's inside the school or out. Another piece that we've long led, really in the state, and worked directly with our 7 school districts here within the county, is Iowa Reading Corps. So that's placement of very specifically trained tutors in our school buildings and working directly one-on-one with students who may have some challenges or opportunities to grow their love of reading and their proficiency. And so this year, we're really proud. We're in all elementary schools within the Ames Community School District, as well as Gilbert. We'll be expanding next year into some of our other districts, but looking to make sure by 3rd grade, what we're seeing there is reading proficiency. You're switching as you move through 3rd grade and on, you're switching from learning to read and reading to learn. So we want to make sure that every student is equipped to be able to read and read well, and feel prepared for the future, whatever that future might be for them.
Well, I'll give a shout out certainly to all teachers, but my background's in education as well, and I've experienced firsthand the challenges of some elementary students reading. I mean, I've seen it firsthand, and it's a long game approach to equipping students to do this. Certainly there's going to be a certain percentage that they get it right away. It's easy for them, but the percentage, and I think it's almost like a third of Story County 3rd graders are not proficient in reading, and it's not a byproduct of any one thing, but also there's not just one solution to that. It's this ongoing repetitive thing that doesn't. It's not just a school district's responsibility to help solve, and I know that the United Way has been involved with that.
Sure, and I think whether you're an educator or not, I think most people understand that we all learn differently, and our styles and approaches can be different. And so where Iowa Reading Corps, so placing tutors directly in schools to give that one-on-one support to those students who just need a little extra attention and help, is one way we can do that. Offering other programming and services to not only children but their families to help reinforce maybe some tips and tools and tricks of gaining that love of reading is another way we make those investments. Certainly, our school districts are an incredibly important part of that, but we also recognize too that there are other ways that students want to learn or can learn, and so how do we provide those supports in a way that's meaningful and that is going to meet every single youth in our community where they are.
And just from personal experience, I know students, there's a variety of factors, but one of them that I've been involved with and seen firsthand is just a student who is dyslexic, and they just see things differently, and oftentimes assessing that or understanding like, oh, this student, could be dyslexic. It goes undiagnosed for, so long, but the impact just compounds over time. And so anyway, it's a really good program and just good thing to be involved with. Wheels for Work program, partnership with Ames Ford Lincoln. I've talked with Nick about this as well, but this just, it makes my heart happy just to know that this takes place. Explain it a little bit.
Sure. This is really the Wheels for Work program came from Nick and Casey Johnson, who are local business owners, Ames Ford Lincoln. They have another business in the Fort Dodge area where they offer this program as well. But this is really the connection between community members who want to donate a vehicle that they're no longer using. And then through our partnership with many of our nonprofit agencies, United Way is able to identify local households or families that are really in need of transportation that's going to help them achieve their goals, whether that's, I would really need, we did a Wheels for Work giveaway where we connected a family with a vehicle, and this was a woman who was very near her completion for a healthcare degree, and she was having to do some travel to and from Des Moines, but didn't have transportation to be able to do that. And so this was a family who almost had to forego completing an educational degree, which is life-changing.
Yeah, truly.
For a family. So it is heartwarming. It is the best feeling when you are able to partner with Ames Ford Lincoln, who gets these vehicles in running shape and helps connect the families with us. There is no better day than to see a family who said, this is going to change my life. I will be able to bring my kids to childcare. I'll be able to complete a degree. The challenges that I had making it to and from work using public transportation are no longer a concern for me. So it's truly life-changing.
And these challenges, I mean, like they are, for those who don't experience them, and I include myself in that scenario, it's just so hard to comprehend how cumbersome and impactful that can be towards a career. But even, bringing your son or daughter to say soccer practice, and the joy that will bring them and positively impact, their life moving forward, that can be gone with the simple fact, like, I can't get you there.
Absolutely. And we hear this at United Way almost daily of, if only I.
Yeah, right.
And fill in that blank. And so transportation is the component of everything that we've been talking about, whether that's childcare, workforce, whatever that may be, is having that reliable transportation is one part in that cycle that we talk about of really supporting working families and working individuals in our community, having access to childcare, being able to have access to, a household sustaining job, and transportation is a part of that. We're very fortunate.
It's an essential part of that.
Yep.
I mean,
yep. Yeah. And we have great public transit systems in our community, but as we talked about before, sometimes where we live, work, and play looks different for others. And so if you're living in one community and working in another, sometimes that transportation and those needs look different. And so the Wheels for Work program has been one way that we've been able to impact dozens and dozens of families in our community since that program started.
Talk little bit about food drives and then maybe even generally speaking, food insecurity across the Story County. I have a stat here, and this came from your annual report. Last year, over 20,000 pounds of food and hygiene products were distributed across the community. I don't know that I can even comprehend what that number means, but it's a lot.
It is. Think of that in terms of semis. Yeah. So, that is the impact that our community makes through the annual United Way food drive. It is, if anyone wants to volunteer, if you're like, I'm not even sure what that looks like, spend an hour with us on the day that we deliver to our 20 plus food pantries across the county, and you will see what happens. Oftentimes we walk into food pantries and shelves are bare or near bare, and we leave and they are full to the brim. I'm incredibly proud. We are a community of abundance, and we are a community that cares. And so 20,000 pounds, I mean, you walk into one of our busiest food pantries, Salvation Army, that's completely bare, and then you walk out and there's rooms full of food that are going to folks on fixed incomes, working families who are trying their very best to make things work for them financially. And this is just one opportunity and way that our community can show support to our friends and neighbors. It's amazing.
So I know that when your annual campaign kicks off, I know that you and Kristen oftentimes come here and go to many other organizations as sort of like that start of the campaign and to kick it off. And one of the things that I've always appreciated is you're articulating the story of our community on why this is important. But, with everything, everyone's on social media and everyone's life is busy, and oftentimes they go from home to work and then work to home. They don't understand always, and myself included, the scale of need that is present across the community.
Sure. And I think need looks different for everyone in our community. One of our local food pantries here shared a stat with us that sort of took myself and our team and board aback of, this is what need looks like. This particular pantry said, they've got a small percentage of folks who are coming in to use their food pantry every week, so 4 or 5%. You've got 4 or 5% that are coming in monthly, and then over 50% of who this food pantry is seeing, they're seeing once or twice a year. So thinking about that and taking a step back of, for so many of our folks in our community, they are, one emergency or one paycheck away from needing those resources and support. And we're seeing that locally where we should be proud as a community is not only the work that we're doing to make sure that there are those immediate resources and needs there for folks who need us, whether that's one time a year or regular, or more regularly. We certainly see a lot of retired working individuals on fixed incomes who, rely on that support, and we want to provide that. At the same time, we also want to be building systems to help people and to support people with their own goals and what they want to do in the future, whether that is thinking about a new career or looking at business and home ownership. And so how do we also not just address those kind of immediate needs and sort of downstream effects, if you will, but how do we move what we call upstream? We talk about that a lot as a team and a board, but how do we support and walk alongside families and individuals in our community to help them achieve what it is that they want to? So maybe those resources and support aren't something that they necessarily need to rely on every day.
Yeah. So how do you work with your team around these topics? I know that there are some on your team who have been, they've been through many year cycles of this. And so they understand the mission, the importance, the cadence. But, a lot of these topics, like they're very challenging as well. And so there is certainly this work-life balance of working in some of these topics and yet trying to find ways to unplug as well.
Sure. And it's a challenge. You see that. I know you've had Amber Deerdorf and other folks on here, that direct service provider or that service adjacent, that burnout is real. Where you're solely focused on helping your community, and that can be really challenging sometimes. I think where United Way is positioned is having a staff and a board and many supporters who that's their life's work, whether that's personal or professional. So driven by how do we do this and how do we make that happen? I think where you see in our team and in United Way is that innovation. So sometimes doing things the way we've always done it and not really being able to step back, that can be challenging and frustrating, where maybe something that worked 10 years ago isn't working anymore. And so I think kind of getting through that, if you will, sometimes is let's take a step back. And maybe that's not working, and we're certainly doing that at United Way of really looking inward and outward, and how can we do things differently? And that's where you see excitement build and see a passion and an interest be reignited to do that.
Do you have an example of that? That's not always easy to do. Doing the same thing, year over year is a whole lot easier.
It is. I would say one example, and we'll be talking about this here in the coming days, is reimagining our Women United program. We've long been invested for almost 20 years in this community around financial literacy and education for women and female-led households in the community. We had longstanding education and programming that made sense, and so many women in our community were able to achieve financial independence, were able to build savings, were able to achieve their goals in education or home ownership. And as we saw, with 2020 and beyond, the world changed.
Yeah.
And so where we started seeing over the last couple of years is our partner agencies, so those nonprofit agencies we work with, and our community members saying, we need something different.
Yeah.
And then when we look at our community health needs assessment, something that really stuck out to us was 1 in 4 Story County households don't have $400 for an emergency. Is
that real?
That is real. So 26% of Story County households do not have $400 in the bank for an emergency. So that's a car tire blowing, that's a water bill that you weren't expecting, that is some sort of expense that you weren't expecting, that they're not able to cover that. And so all of that information and data that we've heard from our community, we said, there's something we can be doing differently. And so we'll be launching some new programming and a new match savings program for Women United here this year that will help our local friends and neighbors and our households be able to achieve financial independence in a way that they haven't been able to before.
That is, well, thank you for sharing that stat, because I think it's a great example to showcase how razor thin the line is between life going good and introducing chaos. I mean, very, very quickly. I mean, that isn't even a big bill. I mean, that can happen very, very quickly.
Right. And we're seeing that more and more with working families, or particularly for our retired 60 forward population, where they have worked very hard. They've paid into Social Security, and they are doing their very best to make ends meet. But sometimes that can be challenging based on individual experiences and dynamics. So how do we work alongside our community members to be able to change that?
Yeah. And not to dive into this topic, but, as everyone, whoever's listening to, as you look through the news and you see, gas prices going up. I mean, like that all plays a role over the course of a month. I mean, that can, and you have to go to work and go back home and you have to go get groceries, and, those prices continue to increase. That $400 goes away very fast.
It does. And I think that's, here over the last couple of years, what we're hearing and seeing more and more, whether it's through the needs assessment or our nonprofit partners or our healthcare partners, of folks who are really just trying to make it. And where we want to move is from just trying to survive the week or the month and those bills to really thriving. Yeah. And so where we are fortunate is to be able to have some great partners to be able to help us build new programming and a new system that's doing just that, of supporting working families and supporting working individuals. And alongside that, how do we help them build a sustainable future?
We talked at the top of this episode about, there's this big fundraising campaign, and then you give it all away. Like, what are some examples of where some of this money is going, maybe on some of the items that we haven't talked about?
Sure. So every year we talked a little bit about the asset process, but unique to this community where we work with the City of Ames, Story County, and ISU student government, we have priorities that we see within our community. Again, not in a vacuum. We're being informed by our community and lots of other data and resources. And so collectively, we give out about $5.5 million. And we're making investments anywhere from supporting our nonprofit childcare centers to all different kinds of healthcare services, mental health and substance use treatment for both youth and adults. Obviously, that's been a critical component of our community network and system that's needed. So very proud of the work that we're doing in that space. Also looking at supports for our friends and neighbors with intellectual or developmental disabilities, so programming and services for them, but then also programs around respite care, so taking care of our caregivers. So do we have family members or parents who are working very hard to provide supports for children or adult children, but sometimes they need a break as well. So making sure that we're supporting those services that are wrapping around an entire family. So, gosh, we fund over 100 programs through 34 agencies. So it's pretty amazing.
I mean, that is truly amazing. Yeah. So as these conversations continue to come up, and we've talked about how, your organization is probably often quick to get involved or people want you to get involved. What type of leadership skills do you have to really tap into because not all of these things have answers right away. They don't all have solutions, because if they did, well, then we'd be implementing them. But they're complicated, they're complex, they take money, they take resources, but everyone's looking to you for the answer because of, your body of work that you've had over, years of success and positively impacting the community. How do you go into some of those conversations?
Sure. The complexity is certainly there. I think in terms of leadership skills and where, and that's United Way and other organizations that we see in the community, again, we're very fortunate to have some great leaders that have that skill set around really listening and taking a holistic view of the community, and that's thinking from all sides of an issue or a challenge that we may be seeing in the community. And so that may require you to think about your own biases and what you're bringing to the table and your own knowledge, but being able to connect with other leaders, other folks who have lived experience, other funders, and really looking at all sides of an issue or a challenge or an opportunity in the community. And that's, I know I continue to reference things like our health needs assessment, but pulling together not only data, but also the impact that we're seeing every day, whether that's a client or a patient, being able to dig through that complexity and see and identify where there are potential solutions, or gosh, no matter who I'm talking to, there seems to be a challenge. Childcare is one where access to childcare, availability of childcare, affordability of childcare, looking at that from all angles, and then how do we get the right folks around the table to attack this in different ways, because we can't do it alone.
Does it feel like it moves in slow motion sometimes?
I'm an impatient person, so I always feel like it's moving slow. But boy, some of the work that we've done as a community in a year's time, other communities it takes 5 years to do.
Right.
Speed and pace are not always the most important thing, but we also always have to keep in mind of getting out of our own way sometimes to be able to do it as what we need to do, and that is to help our community.
Are you the leader that says, let's map this all out before we go, or you say, let's go, and then we'll figure it out?
I want to say I'm a little bit of both. I tend to want us to move. I think for some issues and some challenges in our community, we don't have the luxury always of being able to do a feasibility study and to think through this. Sometimes we have to take the information, the data, and the resources and supports that we have and move, and know that maybe it won't be perfect, but we have too many folks relying on us to do the right thing.
And you have enough information where you make an informed decision, and then the rest is just weeds. You get through it.
Absolutely. We think through, we know that there's a challenge. We know that there's a problem that needs to be solved. There might be some devils in the detail that we have to figure out, but our folks are counting on us.
Yeah. Well, but I think it also speaks to the team that is behind you and behind the decision and working on behalf of that topic as well.
Yes, and we, I will say we have a board who recognizes that as well, where we've been fortunate as an organization, as a community. We are grounded in data. We are grounded in having a really deep understanding of the challenges and the pressures in our community. And so I don't feel that anything that we're doing, we're coming out of we've never encountered this before. Everything that we've talked about today, we see year over year. And so we have that great base and great leaders and great businesses and organizations that all want to see a better life for everyone in our community. So we always start with that base.
Do you have a professional win from the last week or two?
Ooh, I would say one, we did something new for United Way. We've launched what we call our Major Grants Initiative. So it's the first time that we've launched, and it's $100,000 in funding that we're giving out to organizations, and we're challenging innovation. So rather than funding services that are provided, which is great, we want that. But all too often I hear from our nonprofit partners, if only I had funding to fill in the blank. And then they dream. And so through the generosity of our donor partners, we're able to make this possible. So what's been exciting is we're seeing some ideas for funding opportunities that are coming in, and we're seeing multiple agencies coming together we're going to work together and solve this issue. How exciting is that? So rather than that funding individual services, how are we getting folks to work together in new and different ways? So that's been great.
Dreams stop oftentimes when you know that funding is not available, because you know it can't get off the ground. But now with that variable sort of at least counted for in a certain way, or at least a certain part of it, it can open up the door to new ideas.
It can. And I think often for nonprofit organizations, it's keeping our head above water. We're trying to serve families or patients or clients, and we know that if we just were able to do something a little bit differently, we could do that in a better way. And sometimes that funding is really hard to find, or it doesn't exist. And so, over the last 2 years, we're hearing from our partners that this would be an opportunity for us to think differently and to be bold and to try something new. So that's certainly a win and an excitement for us to see where that may go.
So what's the easiest way for a business to get involved with the United Way, or an individual who has time and capacity and interest in volunteering? How can they connect with the team there?
Sure. So our website, uwstory.org, has a lot of information like that, but we're also located here in downtown Ames on Clark Avenue. So we welcome anyone from the community to come in and see us. The volunteer piece is something we're really excited about as well. So.
Well, the money will make a difference, and certainly there will be an opportunity for volunteering. I'd imagine you and your team will find a way for both of those to make sense.
Yes, and so I think whether it's donating your time, donating your dollars, donating your expertise or resources, there's always a way to be involved. In United Way, we're excited to help folks connect in that way.
Good. Ashley Thompson, President and CEO of the United Way of Story County, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast.
Thanks, Eric.
For everyone listening, if you liked this episode, we would certainly love if you would share it. This is the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. Personal stories, professional journeys.